came across the ocean, a dream within their souls, to build a brand new nation and to break the old controls. They stood up to a tyrant with nothing but their pride, with a fire in their hearts and with God right by their side. They said, we'll bow to no one, no king across the sea. The world said they were foolish. The world said they would fail to stand against an empire in the thunder and the hail. They fought in frozen winters. They bled on frozen ground, but the promise of a future was the only thing they found. A chance for all the little guys to finally be free. Liberty. came across the ocean, a dream within their souls, to build a brand new nation, and to break the old.
We do a little trolling. It's called We Do a Little Trolling.
They stood up to a tyrant with nothing but their pride, with a fire in their hearts and with God right by their side. They said we'll bow to no one, no king across the sea. Liberty, we're down on our knees. Liberty, we're begging, darling, please. Liberty. Don't you let your children be. The world said they were foolish. The world said they would fail to stand against an empire in the thunder and the hail. They fought in frozen winters. They bled on frozen ground. But the promise of a future was on the day I was born, the eagle learned to fly. The thunder started rumbling in a clear and sunny sky. The doctor took one look at me and he began to grin. He knew the kind of trouble that the world was getting in. He said, "This ain't no ordinary boy. You better understand. He's got the spirit of his country, the pride of this great land. 'Cause I'm red, white, and blue. Yeah, red, white, and blue. I'm a patriot, baby, through and through. And I'll stand up for red, white, and blue." I grew up strong and steady. I grew up straight and tall. I learned to pledge allegiance before I learned to crawl. I don't apologize for freedom. I don't apologize for might. I believe in doing what you know is good and right. The other nations of the world, they can do what they please. But I'm planting my flag right here and I'm catching a summer breeze. 'Cause I'm red, white, and blue. Yeah, red, white, and blue. I'm a patriot, baby, through and through. And I stand up for the
We do a little trolling. It's called We Do a Little Trolling.
First and energetic, honking saxophone solo wails over the main reel. Then a raw, wailing slide guitar solo takes over, full of grit and bluesy attitude. Now if you love this country, then you know just what I mean. From the mountains to the prairies and every town between. We're all cut from the same cloth. We're all part of the same dream. We're all floating down the river of the same old mighty stream. So stand up and be counted. Let everybody know you're a part of something special. Let your true colors show. Yes, I'm a man, white and blue, through and through. That's right, American made. Rubbermaid. I was on boldly like rocking into the powerful, swaggering groove. On the day I was born, the eagle learned to fly. The thunder started rumbling in a clear and sunny sky. The doctor took one look at me and he began to grin. He knew the kind of trouble that the world was getting in. He said, "This ain't no ordinary boy. You better understand. He's got the spirit of his country, the pride of this great land. 'Cause of red, white, and blue." Yeah, red, white, and blue. I'm a patriot, baby, through and through. And I stand up for the red, white, and blue. I grew up strong and steady. I grew up straight and tall. I learned to pledge allegiance before I learned to crawl. I don't apologize for freedom. I don't apologize for might. I believe in doing what you know is good and right. The other nations of the world, they can do what they please. But I'm planting my flag right here and I'm catching a summer breeze. 'Cause I'm red, white, and blue. Yeah, red, white, and blue. I'm a patriot, baby, through and through. And I stand up for the red, white, and blue. If you love this country, then you know just what I mean. From the mountains to the prairies and every town between. We're all cut from the same cloth. We're all part of the same dream. We're all floating down the river of the same almighty stream. So stand up and be counted. Let everybody know you're a part of something special. Let your true colors show. Yeah, I'm red, white, and blue. Through and through. That's right, American made. The main riff plays one last time and ends with a final crashing chord.
do a little trolling. It's called We Do a Little Trolling.
The sheriff, he's a good man. He doesn't have much to do. 'Cause
We do a little trolling. It's called We Do a Little Trolling.
for their neighbors, me and you. Every Friday night they gather.
We do a little trolling. It's called We Do a Little Trolling.
Game. They cheer for the home team and they call them all by name. From the baker to the blacksmith, they're all part of the machine. Living out the cleanest version of that American dream. Oh, down in Freedom's Forge, you can see the flag flying high. The people work together underneath that big blue sky. They don't have time for anger. They don't have time for hate. They're too busy building futures down by the factory gate. Yeah. And when the sun is setting low, the families all know where to go. Down to the town square for a summer night's parade. A celebration of the honest life they've made. Talking about freedom's forge. Oh, you can feel that spirit. Oh, yeah, the heart of the country. Down in freedom's Well, the sun is coming up over freedom's forge. And the people of the town are all in one accord. You got the farmers on the tractors tilling up the ground. You can hear that patriotic, old familiar sound of the church bell ringing and the train rolling through. Everybody's got a job and they all know what to do. Oh, down in Freedom's Forge, you can see the flag flying high, flying high. The people work together underneath that big blue sky, big blue sky. They don't have time for anger. They don't have time for hate. They're too busy building
Well, thank you very much, everybody. It's great to be in this beautiful Oval Office. It never looked so nice. We're getting great compliments, and you see outside how that's come out. It's been great. We make a lot of improvements to the White House, and we're doing that. One of the things you should be looking at is the Palm Court, because that's been totally redone. So we like to preserve and make better the White House, and that's really what's happened, and we're getting tremendous reviews, and we appreciate it. But we're here for a different reason. It's called Operation Summer Heat, which is an appropriate term in light of what we're doing. And early yesterday morning, I returned from the Middle East, where we celebrated a historic agreement to end years of suffering and conflict. Amazing. Every country came together. I mean, even the enemies came out and totally endorsed it. Everybody, I've never seen anything like it. Nobody's seen anything like it. And just as we are forging peace and stability abroad, we're also restoring peace and safety and stability at home. And you see that in Washington, D.C., maybe better than any place, because we got there, and within 12 days it was very good. And within 30 days it's been as safe as any city in the country. It's been great. Took out 1,700 people, got them out. These are career criminals in many cases, and people that shouldn't have been allowed in by the Biden administration. Historically, the summer months have been a time when violent crime soar, as you know, but not under President Trump. Today, we're announcing the results of a sweeping law enforcement effort known as Operation Summer Heat. We were in many cities that people didn't know about. We kept it a little quiet, and it had a big impact, and you'll hear that in a second. But over the past few months, FBI offices in all 50 states made crushing violent crime a top enforcement priority. That's what they did, rounding up and arresting thousands of the most violent and dangerous criminals. And these are among the most dangerous and violent people in the world. They were allowed, in many cases, not in all cases, but in many cases they were allowed in by a very foolish, actually stupid, open border policy. Just anybody could have come in. They emptied out their jails, their prisons, their mental institutions. They emptied them into our country. And the people behind me have done an incredible job, because if we didn't have that administration, it would have been so much easier. They allowed millions of people in this country that shouldn't have been allowed, including over 11,000 murderers, half of whom murdered more than one person. And many of them are gone now, or they're put in prison, because we don't want to have them come back. So we literally put them in our prison, which we don't want to do. But we bring them back to their countries. Working with state and local partners, the FBI arrested over 8,000 violent criminals during the course of this period. In major cities like in New Orleans, Nashville, we saw a 250% increase in arrests. And we really went after the bad ones. These include 725 individuals wanted for violent crimes against children and murderers. These arrests are in addition to the work of our historic federal task forces that make D.C. Safe Task Force has been unbelievable. I mean, the job they've done, it's incredible. And it's been so nice, because so many people, they're going out to dinner and they're having dinners. They didn't go out for 4 years. And now they're going out 3 times a week. The restaurants are opening. Restaurants are full. And usually that means a lot of good things. But restaurants that were closed are now opening up. And everybody's happy. It's nobody's ever seen anything like it, actually. And everybody feels safe. You can have a child walk right through the middle of Washington, D.C., and nothing's going to happen. We were losing more than one person a week in Washington. They're being killed on an average of over one a week. The Make D.C. Safe Task Force has been incredible, and the Make Memphis Safe Task Force is having very similar results. It's much earlier, but we've been there for a week and a half, but I'm hearing the results are pretty incredible, and you'll hear about that. They're mobilizing more than 20 federal agencies for the largest law enforcement operation targeting violent criminals in American history. As a result of these efforts, violent crime declined nearly 20% nationwide compared to the same period last year, and it was the safest and most peaceful summer in 2 decades. And honestly, we haven't really even gotten going yet. If we didn't have to fight all of these radical left governors, we could have had Chicago taken care of, as an example. They had, in a short period of time, 4,000 murders in Chicago, and we have to listen to this man stand up and say that we're bad people. And the people of Chicago are walking around with MAGA hats. You have women, beautiful black women, walking around with MAGA hats. Please let the president in, and we don't care how he does it. They're not interested in National Guard or Army, Navy. Bring them in. Marines, bring in the Marines. They just want the crime to stop. And more so because of the success that we had in D.C. I think if we didn't have that success, nobody would even believe it. So I want to congratulate all of the incredible law enforcement professionals joining us today, especially Attorney General Pam Bondi, who's terrific, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, who is a fantastic legal talent. He really is. He's a great guy, too. And, of course, FBI Director Kash Patel. They have worked so hard on this and other things. Since the start of the administration, the FBI has arrested over 23,000 violent criminals, more than double the number arrested in the final year of the Biden disaster. The FBI has also destroyed or severely disrupted more than 170 organized criminal enterprises and gangs, 1,600 of the most violent gangs, and confiscated over 6,000 illegal firearms. And they've tracked down and arrested 4 fugitives on the most wanted list, 4 of the most wanted. Actually, 2 of them were the most wanted fugitives in the world. There's still much more work to be done, which is why the FBI continues to work alongside the Department of Justice, the Department of Homeland Security, and the Department of War to defend. And Pete Hegseth has been fantastic, by the way, on this too, on other things, but on this too, to defend law and order and combat violent crime, arrest illegal aliens, and make American cities the safest in the world. And when I campaigned, I talked about crime, but I never knew that we were going to get into it like we did. You know, I mean, I used to watch these cities with the murders. Chicago recently had one deal where they had 11 murders in one weekend, and they said, well, yeah, but it was a holiday weekend. They actually told me that was the reason, like it was okay because it was a holiday. It was Labor Day. These people are the worst. They really have to, they better, I tell you what, the people in Chicago and the people in places like that can be fixed. At some point, it gets to where you can't fix it anymore. It's too far gone. And we have some cities like that. But these are great cities that can be fixed. I'm going to be strongly recommending, at the request of government officials, which is always nice, that you start looking at San Francisco. I think we can make San Francisco. There's one of our great cities 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Now it's a mess. And we have great support in San Francisco. So I'd like to recommend that for inclusion, maybe in your next group. You get great support. Every American deserves to live in a community where they're not afraid of being mugged, murdered, robbed, raped, assaulted, or shot. And that's exactly what our administration is working to deliver. I didn't realize I was going to make this such a big factor in the administration. I didn't really campaign. I campaigned on crime, but I never thought we'd go into every city and take a really safe city that we've all been living with for years and make them safe. And now it's like a passion for me, and it's a passion for the people behind me. So I didn't get elected. I did get elected for crime, but I didn't get elected for what we're doing. This is many, many steps above. And I want to thank Stephen Miller, who's right back in the audience right there. I'd love to have him. I love watching him on television. I'd love to have him come up and explain his true feelings. But maybe not his truest feelings. That might be going a little bit too far. But, Stephen, thank you for doing an unbelievable job. And the people of this country love you, I'll tell you. And they love what you say about crime and stopping crime. So now I'd like to ask Director Patel to say a few words, and then Pam and Todd also. And I just want to congratulate them. This is an amazing thing. And we're just at the start. We're going to go into other cities that we're not talking about purposely. We're getting ready to go in. And when they go in, like Kash, as an example, told me that people didn't even know. 5 months ago, they went into Chicago, and they started doing a lot of work in Chicago. And we brought the numbers down a little bit. And but that really was just preparatory work for what we're going to do with the surge. We're going to have a surge of strong, good people, patriots, and they're going to go in, they straighten it all out. So a lot of these cities we're already working on, but we don't do it with a big flavor. But in a little while, you're going to see some numbers that you're not going to believe. And I think you'll probably start with Memphis, because I'm hearing the numbers are much quicker than we even thought possible. But again, D.C. it speaks for itself. Chicago is going to be okay. We're going to save Chicago. And I told you, and I told them, a very respected man, the head of the Union Pacific, said, "Sir, save Chicago. It can be saved." And the way he said it was like, can you believe it? We're trying to save Chicago. But I understood exactly what he wants, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to save all of our cities, and we're going to make them essentially crime-free, like other countries have crime-free. If you go all over the world, you go to the world, you hear Afghanistan and you hear all these different places. Our crime in certain cities is worse than anything they can even imagine. And we're not going to have that any longer. It's going to stop, and it stops right here. Cash, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. What I'd like to do is just highlight some of the outstanding work that the men and women of the FBI have been doing. And thanks to your brave leadership and the mandate you were given by the American people to not only defend the homeland but crush violent crime, you tasked us with our great partners at the Department of Justice and the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General to start making arrests and bring prosecutions and safeguard our cities. And you said it. This is just the beginning. In just 7 months, I hope the media takes a look at every one of these charts, because these are the best numbers for fighting crime in U.S. history, and it's only 7 months in. And to do that, our vehicle to do it of choice was Operation Summer Heat, which the FBI architected to go after violent criminals. And in just a 3-month span, you had 8,700 arrests of violent criminals. You had 2,200 firearms seized off the streets permanently to safeguard our communities. You had 421 kilograms of fentanyl seized. Just to put that in perspective, that's enough to kill 55 million Americans alone. You had 45,000 kilograms of cocaine seized. And thanks to our Department of Justice partners, you had 2,100 indictments in 3 months, from June to September alone. Mr. President, that in and of itself would be historic for a 4-year presidency. You did that in 7 months because you let good cops be cops, and you partnered us with the right people at the Department of Justice to put the handcuffs on and bring them to court and put them in prison. And if that weren't enough, when you look at the year, for the entire 7-month period that we're talking about here, if you look at the past 4 years of the Biden administration, 16,000, 17,000, 15,000, 15,000. That's the number of arrests year over year of violent felons in this country for the Biden administration. Mr. President, in 7 months, you have 28,600 arrests of violent felons in just 7 months alone, because of your leadership and the dedication of the men and women at the FBI who want to go out there and do the job they were prevented from doing, because that department used to be weaponized and politicized. And this is what happens when you take out the fangs of weaponization. This number is historic by every metric. 28,000 people have been arrested, violent felons alone. And then when you go over there and look at some of these charts, if you don't mind, I'll just hop over here. Look at the metrics for not just violent crime, but the homeland. Mr. President, during your administration, the FBI has found and located 5,400 children. That is a 30% increase year to date over the last administration. Violent crimes against children arrests alone are up 10%. Gang arrests are up 210% in the last 7 months alone. And transnational organized crime, which Stephen Miller has been a great partner in, is up over 12% alone. These numbers are historic just as a snapshot. But just so people don't think we're focusing on violent crime alone, the national security mission, Mr. President, under your leadership has never been stronger. We have gone after espionage activities against our main counterparts in China, Russia, and Iran. In China alone, we've had over a 50% increase in espionage arrests alone and prosecutions. In Iran, we have had a 50% increase, again, in espionage cases. And in Russia, we've had a 33% increase in espionage cases alone. When it comes to counterterrorism, year to date, we have 125 arrests this year versus 100 last year, year to date alone. And when it comes to the cyber criminal activities, which are some of the largest enterprises plaguing everyday Americans, we at the FBI have put out a mission to go after cyber criminals like never before. Last year, they had in total 191. This year, you already have 252 arrests. 52 arrests of violent cyber criminals who are stealing from senior citizens, who are violating our children's rights and freedoms, and who are violating everyday Americans. These programs are record. And two of the things I'll finish with that I'm most proud of, Mr. President, this FBI, fentanyl. As you know, it's a scourge that is killing our youth, 100,000 plus a year. To date, the FBI has seized 1,900 kilograms of fentanyl. That's enough lethal doses to kill 127 million Americans alone, to date. And if that weren't enough, Mr. President, you said we have to go after the worst of the worst. And you empowered our Department of Justice, our Attorney General, Deputy Attorney General, and the Deputy Director at the FBI, led the charge, not just on summer heat, but he also led the charge in the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives. These people have been on the run for years. And in 7 months, you captured not one, not two, not three, but 4 of the FBI's most top 10 fugitives. 4. And just to put that in perspective, Mr. President, the Biden administration captured 4 in all of 4 years. You're on 7, and we're going to get to 10. We're going to get to 10 of 10. This includes a lady who murdered her 6-year-old handicapped child and fled to India. We got her in 2 months. This includes a narco trafficker. This includes a sex trafficker. This includes another first-degree murderer and gangbanger. These people were on the run because of the prior administration's reckless policies that destroyed our communities, and you came in and with a mandate said, go after the worst of the worst. This is just the beginning. This is what happens when you let good cops be good cops at the FBI. Mr. President, I just want to thank you for your incredible leadership, our brave partnership with prosecutors who know how to bring cases and make sure these arrests stick. And that's what the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General have led the charge across this country, because arrests without prosecutions are meaningless. We are deterring criminals from doing this activity. We are preventing criminals from coming into America, and we are absolutely crushing violent crime like never before and defending this homeland, sir. And not to mention, I almost forgot this one, it took you, sir, 2 weeks to get the Abbey Gate bomber. Joe Biden had 4 years to look for him. You got him in 2 weeks, thanks to the interagency effort by the FBI and the CIA, went to Pakistan, and now 13 brave warriors who were senselessly murdered because of disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal. They have justice, their families have a peace of mind, and we're going to continue to find the others, Mr. President. On behalf of the FBI, sir, I just want to thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. Great job. Very good. Very impressive. Ken, would you like to say?
President Trump, the men and women of law enforcement say 2 things to me repeatedly. First, you have taken the handcuffs off them and let them do their jobs, and you let cops be cops. That's why all this is happening. The director, the deputy director are working around the clock. All of these great men and women in the FBI, they have families at home, and they are working during a government shutdown right now. Many of them have small children. Many of them, I was talking to an agent this morning, many of them have babies at home, and they are working around the clock to not only keep our country, but our world safe. And that's what Operation Summer Heat did. Thank you, Director, and to the Deputy Director for everything you did on behalf of the Department of Justice, and you're going to continue to keep doing. And they set the stage for what we're doing in Memphis. You're going to hear a lot more about that, our joint task force next week, but they set the stage for Memphis. And last night alone in Memphis, there were almost 70 arrests. There were 12 guns seized, and there was a 70-year-old man arrested as a result of our operation in Memphis who raped a child under the age of 3. That one case makes everything we're doing worthwhile. So thank you all for being here on behalf of both of us. Thank you, President Trump.
Thank you. Todd, do you want to say something?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. President. So this is a great day, and I think there's stats that the director talked about which are important, but I want to give 2 examples of what summer heat has done that actually will apply hopefully to everybody in this room. The first is for over 4 years during the last administration, there was a hotel in a town, the middle of a town in Alaska, that was being run as a drug den. There were over 1,000 calls to 911 over 4.5 year period. There were multiple violent crimes, drug dealers, overdoses, and murders at this one hotel, ruining a community. Summer Heat went in there. It's not only arrested all the participants that were controlling the hotel, but seized the hotel. And so that's one example of what summer heat means to everyday Americans that just want to live in peace. The second example is a large narcotics trafficking group that was selling fentanyl in the state of Washington. They were shipping fentanyl and using commercial aircraft, putting fentanyl pills and powder in suitcases, flying them from the southwest border, mostly Arizona, all the way to Washington. It had been going on for an extremely long time, and the entire organization was arrested. And I say those 2 examples because it's easy to look at the board and see 1,000 arrests. How much different is our communities now compared to the past 4 years? But there's actual life examples. Every one of these arrests means that our streets are safer, and that's because of the work of this administration, of President Trump and Director Patel. So I will tell you, Attorney General Bondi and I are together every day with Director Patel, figuring out ways that we can continue to do this work.
We do a little trolling. It's called we do a little trolling.
The Attorney General said, and like the President said, this is just the beginning, or phase one, or a start, whatever you want to say, but it will continue on. So thank you, Mr. President, and thank you very much, Director Patel.
And Mr. President, just one last thank you from the men and women at the FBI. You found a way to get these individuals paid during a government shutdown, our 1811 agents. So on behalf of the FBI, it's a great debt that we owe you, sir. They're now allowed to pay for their families, so thank you.
And the military. Good.
That's right.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Any questions, please? Brian, go ahead.
Mr. President, first of all, I know the feedback I'm getting from the American people, but they want to say thank you. Law and order is not an option in this country. It's a mandate. So I know the American people thank you for that. In terms of the guns that have been taken off the street, do you have a number of how many guns were taken away from someone that had a prior felony or a previous crime that perhaps we can prosecute that? Because I know that wasn't the case under Joe Biden.
We don't take guns off the streets of people that are allowed to have guns. So every gun that we're taking off the street is because it belongs to somebody who is not allowed to have it. Could be a felon, could be somebody who hears illegally. There's all sorts of conditions. But if there's a gun taken off the streets by the FBI, it's because the person who has it is not allowed to. It's not somebody who's lawfully allowed to have it. So every single one of those guns were taken off of people that aren't allowed to have them.
And not including the FBI, all of the other agencies. ATF alone since January 20th has removed over 25,000 illegal guns off our streets just since President Trump's been in office.
And Mr. President, if I could follow up on that, could there be any further conversation to have national concealed carry applied to actual D.C.? Like if you had a driver's license in Texas and you had a permit, of course you could drive.
Well, as you know, they've been talking about that for a long time. It's an interesting question. A lot of people feel strongly both ways, but we are talking about that, Brian. Thank you.
Mr. President, on Venezuelan votes, I want to ask you, why not have the Coast Guard stop them, which it is empowered by law to do? This way you can confirm who's on the boat and ensure that they're doing what you suspect.
Because we've been doing that for 30 years, and it has been totally ineffective. They have faster boats. Some of these boats are seriously, they're world-class speedboats, but they're not faster than missiles. But we've been trying to do that for years, and so much of the drugs, 25-30%, would come in through the seas. Right now we have, I would say, none coming in through the seas. In fact, I don't know about the fishing industry. If you want to go fishing, a lot of people aren't deciding to even go fishing. We've almost totally stopped it by sea. Now we'll stop it by land.
What's the next
But
step?
it never worked. It never worked when you did it in a very politically correct manner.
What's the next step in this war on cartels, and are you considering options? Are you considering strikes on land?
Well, I don't want to tell you exactly, but we are certainly looking at land now because we've got the sea very well under control. We've had a couple of days where there isn't a boat to be found. And that I view that as a good thing, not a bad thing. But we had tremendous amounts coming in by boats, by very expensive boats. They have a lot of money, very fast, very expensive boats that were pretty big. And the way you look at it is every boat that we knock out, we save 25,000 American lives. So every time you see a boat and you feel badly, you say, wow, that's rough. It is rough, but if you lose 3 people and save 25,000 people, these are people that are killing our population. Every boat is saving 25,000 lives, and you can see it. The boats get hit, and you see that fentanyl all over the ocean. It's like floating in bags. It's all over the place, and it's a tremendous. We're saving tremendous amounts of lives. Yeah,
Mr.
please.
President, on that issue, I know you've talked about. I have a question for you, and then I also have a question for Director Patel. I know you talked about having some distaste for Boston recently. Is this one of those cities that you might be looking into, and can you give us a hint about other cities that you might be?
You're saying for where? For where?
For Boston.
Yeah. Well, Boston has a bad mayor who at least is a reasonable IQ person. Most of them are low IQ. But and they're so bad. What's going on in Chicago is just, you'd think the guy would say, hey, look, we have a problem, Mr. President. Could you come in and straighten it out? We could have that done in a month if we had their cooperation. It's going to be done anyway, but we could have it done in a month. Yeah, Boston, she's got 4 areas that are, wrong. And, somebody said, would we think about taking the World Cup away from Boston if they don't straighten it out? And the answer is yes. We have the right to do that with FIFA. So if we think that L.A. is going to be bad, or we think that applies a little bit to the Olympics too, but we'll talk about FIFA first. FIFA is very hot. If we think there's any reason that, whether it's Boston or anywhere else, that they're not doing their job, we're going to take those World Cup games and move them someplace else.
Thank you. And then Director Patel, there's been so many conspiracy theories swirling around about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Do you have any updates for us, especially in light of all the online content that everyone's been talking about?
The only thing we deal with at the FBI and the Department of Justice is facts. And we delivered at record speed a manhunt to capture Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin in 33 hours. And if you put that in perspective to Luigi Mangione with the Boston bomber, they took them 5 days and a police officer lost their life in their manhunt. We are running out absolutely every single lead. And the best thing we can do to honor my friend Charlie Kirk's life is to make sure that everyone involved is prosecuted to the full extent of the law. And that's what we're focused on, investigating the facts, not trading in conspiracy theories.
Okay.
Mr. President, thank you so much.
Thank you.
In light of China's export curbs on rare earths, do you view India as a reliable partner going forward? And are you planning to meet Prime Minister Modi in Malaysia? Are you open to talks in terms of...
Yeah, sure. He's a friend of mine. We have a great relationship. He just said that 2 days ago, as you know. We have a great relationship. No, we were not happy with him buying oil from Russia, because that lets Russia continue on with this ridiculous war where they've lost 1.5 million people, by the way. Russia's lost 1.5 million people, soldiers mostly. This is a war that should have never started, but it's a war that Russia should have won in the first week, and they're going into the 4th year. And I want to see it stop. So I was not happy that India was buying oil. And he assured me today that they will not be buying oil from Russia. That's a big stop. Now I got to get China to do the same thing. That is relatively easy compared to what we just did over the last week in the Middle East. Middle East was 3,000 years, and we got it done. This is 3 years, and I think we'll get it done. I think that President Putin, I think he wants to get it done. We'll see. There's a great animosity between him and Zelensky. You probably have noticed, right? And I think it's hurting the process. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, thank you. Curious, why did you authorize the CIA to go into Venezuela? And is there more information you can share about these strikes on the alleged...
Well, I can't do that, but I authorized for 2 reasons, really. Number one, they have emptied their prisons into the United States of America. They came in through the border. They came in because we had an open border policy. And as soon as I heard that, I said, a lot of these countries, they're not the only country, but they're the worst abuser. And they've entered they've allowed thousands and thousands of prisoners, mental institution, people from mental institutions, insane asylums, emptied out into the United States. We're bringing them back. But that's a really bad, and they did it at a level that probably not, many countries have done it, but not like Venezuela. They were down and dirty. And the other thing are drugs. We have a lot of drugs coming in from Venezuela. And a lot of the Venezuelan drugs come in through the sea, so you get to see that. But we're going to stop them by land also.
Does the CIA have authority to take out Maduro?
Oh, I don't want to answer a question like that. That's a ridiculous question for me to be given. Not really a ridiculous question, but wouldn't it be a ridiculous question for me to answer? But I think Venezuela is feeling heat, but I think a lot of other countries are feeling heat too. We're not going to let this country, our country, be ruined because other people want to drop, as you say, their worst. They have given us their worst. They've loaded up our country with prisoners, with mentally ill people that are seriously ill, criminally ill. And we're not going to take it. And so, I mean, it's just one of those things. And I can tell you, we've taken care of the sea. There's nobody, and we're watching. We're watching. And if we see it, we'll save it. Yeah, please.
On the ships, though, sir, there are Republicans and Democrats up on the Hill concerned that in the briefings they've gotten about those attacks, they're not necessarily getting information about who was on them and what exactly was on those ships. Can you ensure that...
But they are given information that they were loaded up with drugs, and that's the thing that matters. When they're loaded up with drugs, they're fair game. And every one of those ships they're not ships, they're boats, they're speedboats. They're extremely fast, record-setting type speedboats. They cost a lot of money, and they have a lot of money because they're drug sellers. But they know one thing, and they all have the same thing in common. There's drug dust. They call it drug dust. They call it fentanyl dust all over the boat after those bombs go off. And you can take along.
Attack them though that they're.
We know before. We know when they go out. We know we have much information about each boat that goes out. Deep, strong information. Yeah, please.
So you're going to have Vladimir Zelensky here this week. What is your message at this stage of the war for him? And shy of tomahawks,
to who is that?
For Zelensky.
Yeah.
And shy of tomahawks for Ukraine. Are you considering other options, and will you speak with Vladimir Putin about
No,
that?
we're looking at other options. We are. President Zelensky's coming in. I'm not a fan of the war. I'm not a fan of the way it started. It should have never happened. It wouldn't have started if I were president. The election was rigged. And because of that, we lost a lot of lives have been lost because of that war. Not American lives, but if I can save a lot of lives, that's why I'm in it. I want to save lives. I've had 8 wars. The Prime Minister of Pakistan got up the other day, said so beautifully, says, you saved millions of lives. He told that to a group of people right in this office. He said the president saved millions of lives. And I think what he's referring to is the fact that that would have been with India nuclear war. That was getting very close. 7 planes, they don't talk about it, but 7 aircraft were shot down. In fact, we have the new ambassador to India right here. They're well represented. You better represent us, not them, okay? But Sergio's going to do a great job. He's going to do a great job. But, no, we'll be talking about the war with him, and we'll be talking about, they want to go offensive. I'll make a determination on that, but they would like to go offensive, you know that, and we'll have to make a determination.
President, given you have the FBI Director and Attorney General here today, Jim Jordan has asked Jack Smith to appear in front of the House Judiciary.
You mean deranged, Jack? He's a deranged individual, yeah?
He's asked him to...
Well, they should. I'm surprised it takes so long. We're talking about violent crime. What about the crime against a political opponent? That's what we have to talk about, too.
Jordan would like to understand the full extent to which the Biden-Harris Justice Department weaponized federal law enforcement. What do you think the committee will find out, Mr. Smith?
I think it was the worst weaponization of a political opponent in the history of the world, let alone this country. And I hope that everybody's, they're involved in it. I'm not. I'm the one that had to suffer through it and ultimately win. But what they did was criminal. Deranged Jack Smith, in my opinion, is a criminal. And I noticed his interviewer was, I think that was Weissman. And I hope they're going to look into Weissman, too. Weissman's a bad guy. And he had somebody in Lisa, who was his puppet, worked in the office really as the top person. And I think that she should be looked at very strongly. There was tremendous criminal activity having to do. If we don't have fair elections in this country, we're not going to have a country. And I've said it from the beginning, fair elections and borders. And we need also fair press, because if you don't have fair press, it's very tough. And we've got the strongest border of anybody. Nobody has a border. We have a border where the numbers just came out again. You saw 0 people came in illegally. Now, we do take people into our country legally, but 0 people. But you're talking about a different subject. You're talking about political crime. They have committed massive political crime. I hope they're looking at Shifty Schiff. I hope they're looking at all these people. And I'm allowed to find out. I'm allowed to, I'm, in theory, the chief law enforcement officer. But I have a very good, talented group. This is about something else. But I hope they're looking at political crime, because there's never been so much political crime against a political opponent as what I had to go through. They raided my house in Florida. It was an illegal raid. I have a lawsuit that was doing very well. And when I became president, I said, I'm sort of suing myself. I don't know. How do you settle the lawsuit? I'll say, give me X dollars, right? And I don't know what to do with the lawsuit. It's a great lawsuit. And now I won. It sort of looks bad. I'm suing myself, right? So I don't know. But that was a lawsuit that was very strong, very powerful. They raided illegally my house in Florida, Mar-a-Lago. They went through the drawers of my young son. They went through all of the cabinets and drawers of the First Lady. She walked in, she said, wow, what happened? Because she's very meticulous, and this wasn't so meticulous. And she looked into the drawers and she saw everything a mess. What they did against a person that just got out of office. And then you look at these corrupt people. You look at Hunter Biden. You look at the signature. As an example, the auto pen. I just signed so many different things. An admiral, a four-star general. I'm signing them left and right, the commissions. And by the way, I want to compliment John Thune and also Mike, our great speaker. But John Thune, all of a sudden I'm getting these things by the hundreds. I was getting one every 2 weeks. It would have been 4 years before you got them in more. You would have had some that didn't even get in, all because of Democrat obstruction. So John Thune did a great job. I must have signed 200 into the administration. We're just about caught up. It's amazing. And so compliments to John. He had to do some things that were very tough to do that he didn't want to do, but he was forced to do it by the Democrats. And as far as the shutdown's concerned, this is a Democrat Schumer shutdown. And he's trying to do it to get relevance back into the party because he's a loser. I've known him all his life. He's always been sort of a loser, but an intelligent one. But I think he's losing IQ points with time. I think that happens. I hope it hasn't happened with me. I know if it did, you guys will let me know about it very quickly.
Question on violent crime, sir. Here in D.C., a judge has given the two teenagers that beat up ex-Doge staffer Big Balls probation.
It's incredible.
And no jail time. Is this justice?
Jeanine Pirro is doing a fantastic job, and she is beside herself because you have these radical left judges that they beat the hell out of this guy. And there was many people against this one guy who was really trying to protect his girlfriend. He didn't want his hooded over the door but they really beat him up badly. That just happened, right? Yes. Wow, that's terrible. I think the judge should be ashamed of himself. That's a big problem. You know, they can do their job and then they go into a court and the people are protected by these, I don't know where they come from. Where do these people come from? Where do the judges come from? I want to compliment on behalf of Pam and Todd and all of us because, Cash, I think that Jeanine has done a fantastic job. And the case I heard was like flawless. It's a flawless case. They have them on tape. They have everything. And then a judge gives them a little probation. These are rough guys. And they're young. And if that happens, they're going to grow up. They're going to be real bad. They're going to cause a lot of problems. Yeah, please. Go ahead.
Sergio Gore has just gotten back from India. What were the conversations like with Prime Minister Modi and the other?
I think they were great. He reported to me that he's a great man, you know. Modi is a great man. That he loves Trump. Now, I don't know if the word love, I don't want you to take that any different. I don't want to destroy his political career, okay? But you have to understand, I've watched India for years. It's an incredible country. And every single year you'd have a new leader. I mean, some would be in there for a few months. And this was year after year after year. And my friend has been there now for a long time. And he's assured me there will be no oil purchased from Russia. I don't know. Maybe that's a breaking story. Can I say that? Would you say? There will be no oil. He's not buying his oil from Russia. It started. You know, you can't do it immediately. It's a little bit of a process. But the process is going to be over with soon. And all we want from President Putin is stop this. Stop killing Ukrainians and stop killing Russians because he's killing a lot of Russians. Again, it doesn't make him look good. It's a war that he should have won in 1 week, and he's now going into his 4th year. That does not make this big so-called war machine look good. But he could make a settlement. We're willing to settle. I thought we had a deal. The hatred of the two leaders is very, you know, it's an obstacle. It's an obstacle. There's no question about it. But I thought we had a deal 2 months ago. Who would think I created peace in the Middle East and can't get the two guys to settle? But I think we'll get them. But if India doesn't buy oil, it makes it much easier. And they're not going to buy it. They assured me they will. Within a short period of time, they will not be buying oil from Russia. And they'll go back to Russia after the war's over. Jennifer?
On the shutdown, sir, are FBI officials being paid right now? Are all the FBI employees being paid, and are all the...
Well, that's what I understand. I hope so.
Next year, for Mr. President, the 1811 special agents at the FBI are going to receive their paychecks.
Got a lot of people paid, actually. We got the people that we want paid, okay? And we want the FBI paid, we want the military paid. We got the people that we want paid. And I'll tell you, the Democrats, they don't talk about this. You know, we're getting rid of programs that we didn't like, but that were negotiated in, but we didn't like. We're terminating those programs, and they're going to be terminated on a permanent basis. And it's thousands of people, and it's billions of dollars. We're getting rid of a lot of things that we never wanted because of the fact that they made this stupid move. And they don't want to talk about it. They have their day coming up. I hear very few people are going to be there, by the way. But they have their day coming up, and they want to have their day in the sun. But they should really make a deal. So what we're doing, they call him Darth Vader, but he's actually a very nice person, Russell Vogt. But Russell Vogt is really terminating tremendous numbers of Democrat projects. There's not only jobs, the project in Manhattan, the project in New York, it's billions and billions of dollars that Schumer has worked 20 years to get. It's terminated. Tell him it's terminated, Jennifer. All right.
On Hamas, sir, what is your understanding of the pace of returning the deceased hostages? Are you pleased?
Well, they're looking for them. Absolutely. They're looking. So we have the living hostages all back. They returned some more today. It's a gruesome process. I almost hate to talk about it. But they're digging. They're actually digging. There are areas where they're digging and they're finding a lot of bodies. Then they have to separate the bodies. You wouldn't believe this. And some of those bodies have been in there a long time. And some of them are under rubble. They have to remove rubble. But there are graves, and some are in tunnels that died in tunnels that are way down under the earth. And the tunnels are like 3 feet. Can you believe it? 3 feet high. They lived like this for a long period of time. It's a horrible atrocity. At the same time, we, meaning Israel, but I knew everything they were doing pretty much. I knew most of the things they were doing, but they've killed probably 70,000 of these people, Hamas. And I said, it's time now. So we'll see what happens. We'll also see what happens. Your next question is going to be the weapons. We want the weapons to be given up, sacrificed, and they've agreed to do it. Now they have to do it. And if they don't do it, we'll do it.
We had the head of CENTCOM today suggest that Hamas needs to hurry up and disarm and follow your comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
That it was the head of CENTCOM saying that. Is that not a signal to Hamas, to the rest of the world, that at some point the U.S. military may more directly engage?
We won't need the U.S. military. We won't need it. Because we're very much involved in it. If we weren't involved, there wouldn't be peace. If we didn't destroy the nuclear capability of Iran, that deal would have never happened for two reasons. The Arab nations would not have felt bold enough to do it because you have a very powerful, at that time, Iran is not powerful anymore, between what Israel and us did, because, the attack was, if you look at it, we helped them very much. They will be the first to tell you, including shooting down thousands of drones that were coming into Israel. We shot them down. We were shooting them down like it was target practice, but we shot down thousands of drones and missiles also going into Israel. But between what we did to Iran that way with the, conventional, we will call it, and what see that beautiful plane, that B-2, I noticed it on the desk. I always thought it was beautiful, but I never understood it. Now I understand. It took in hundreds of thousands of bombs in the form of two, but hundreds of thousands of pounds of bombs. And every single bomb hit perfectly. Then they sent Tomahawks in. They sent 30 Tomahawks on top of it. And that was totally, CNN said, well, maybe it wasn't as bad as Trump said, because I said obliterated. Obliterated is not a strong enough word, actually. And you saw the Atomic Energy Commission came out and said the word obliteration is very, very. Think of it. They came in under potential fire. They entered Iran airspace late at night, in the dark, no moon. The moon was low for a reason. What time we picked it. Couldn't see anything. And they hit every target, and they weren't hit. Nobody saw that plane. That plane is stealth. Nobody saw it. The problem with that is it may be stealth today, but tomorrow it won't be. And we just ordered about 20 brand new B-2 bombers. It's unbelievable as a weapon. I know Putin, when I was riding with him in Alaska, we passed a lot of them. And he said, that really did the trick. I said, yeah, it did. It's amazing. The flying wing.
But you still see no reason for the U.S. military to get involved in Gaza?
No, I don't see that. No, I think we're going to handle it very well. We'll be helping Israel. But we have other countries that are now. You know, we signed, many countries signed, and many of those countries relatively are very strong military powers. And Hamas has no support. See, Hamas had the support of Iran, and now Iran says, don't get us involved. The last time they got them involved didn't work out too well. So they used to have the support of Iran. Today, Iran they're trying to survive. You know, when I heard the reports 2 weeks ago, Iran's looking to build a nuclear weapon, I said, don't worry about it. They got a lot of things they want to do before nuclear weapons. I said, the last thing they want to do is a nuclear weapon. It didn't work out. And if they did a nuclear weapon before they got even close, that site would be attacked and it would be wiped out. Yeah.
Mr. President, you're meeting with President Xi in a few weeks.
Yeah.
If you can't come to an agreement or a deal at that meeting, are we in for a sustained trade war with China?
Well, you're in one now. Look, we have 100% tariff. If we didn't have tariffs, we would be exposed as being a nothing. We would have no defense. You know, they've used tariffs on us, but we've never had anybody sitting in that chair that felt the need to do it. And they've allowed us to be $37 trillion in debt, et cetera, et cetera. Tariffs are a very important tool for our defense, for our national security. If we don't have tariffs, we're not going to have national security. As an example, if you look at Pakistan and Iran, I told them I was in the midst of negotiating a trade deal with Iran, and Pakistan was going to be in line. And because of tariffs, they all want to negotiate much differently. We were making a good deal, and then I heard that they're shooting at each other. And I said during one of my conversations, are you guys going to go to war? 2 nuclear powers. We are thinking about, I said, here's the deal. You go to war, I'm going to put a 200% tariff. I'm going to stop you from doing any business in the United States. I said it to both of them. Within 24 hours, the war ended. That would have been a nuclear war. And again, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, who was here 2 weeks ago, said that man saved many millions of lives in front of a whole group of people because he thought it was going to be war. But when it came to war or having to pay massive tariffs, the tariffs overrode. That's why it's so important. Not only the money, we're taking in trillions of dollars, not only the money, the power to keep peace, the power to be used for good is enormous. But a lot of people didn't understand tariffs. It's also made us very rich. We have a big case coming up in the Supreme Court, and I will tell you, that's one of the most important cases in the history of our country, because if we don't win that case, we will be a weakened, troubled financial mess for many, many years to come. I don't even know if survivable is a good term. And if we do, we're going to be the most powerful economic country in the world. And all we're doing is using them as a defense against what took place for many years. China would charge us tariffs. It was incredible, but we weren't allowed to charge. And we're allowed to do whatever we want. We just had presidents that didn't want to do it for whatever reason.
We do a little trolling. It's called
and
we do a little
nothing.
trolling.
But of the 8 wars, I was saying 7, of the 8 wars, I would say tariffs are directly responsible for
we
me.
We do a little trolling. It's called we do a
6
little
of them.
trolling.
5 or 6. Without the tariffs, you have wars raging all over the world. With the tariffs, other than Russia, we have no wars out there. And we've made a lot of good friends, too. Tariffs are so important to our national security. If we don't have tariffs, we don't have national security. Our country would suffer a level that, because they're used so strongly on us. As an example, the European Union, they won't take our cars, they won't take our agriculture, they won't take anything, but they send their cars in, Mercedes, BMW, Volkswagen, by the millions. We don't send any cars. They don't take them. They were tariffing us out. Agricultural products, they don't take our agriculture. They want their farmers to do it. I understand that. But it was very unfair, and they were tariffing our product. They're keeping out by using tariffs. And we didn't use them, but I used them. And now we made one of the great deals with Europe. $650 billion they pay us. And we've evened it out. It's really a good thing to see. And you have to understand, they've all signed. Japan, South Korea. I mean, South Korea, $350 billion up front. Japan, $650 billion. And they've all agreed to it. They're all happy. But before, it was a total ripoff. And if we don't have the use of tariffs, we have no national security. This country will have no financial security, will not have national security. And the people that brought the lawsuit are people that are aligned with foreign nations that are now being treated fairly as opposed to just ripping us off and ripping us asunder. So, but if we are not allowed to use what other people use against us, there's no defense. It'll be a disaster for America. That's why I think I'm going to go to the Supreme Court to watch it. I've not done that, and I had some pretty big cases. I think it's one of the most important cases ever brought, because we will be defenseless against the world. Okay?
You'll go to the tariff case?
Do you have one? Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to ask you about the Georgia Senate race. I know it's very early, but there's several Republicans in that field that are vying for your endorsement.
A lot of good people in that field.
Yes.
I know all of them, actually. I haven't made a decision on that, but you have some very good people in the Georgia Senate race.
Well, Governor has endorsed.
No, the governor has. He's talking to me about it a lot. He likes that candidate a lot. And I understand that. I haven't made a decision yet. But I'm following that race very carefully. I think it's very important for Georgia to get a real senator, because the senator they have now is a horrible senator. He allows all the crime, all the borders. You have open borders. I mean, his whole philosophy is a disaster. That's not representative of the people of Georgia. I know the people of Georgia. I won Georgia 3 times, but they say twice. Okay, I won it very big the last time. And I won it big the first time. And I won it big the second time, but we had criminals that didn't allow. I mean, I hope they're going to go into that. I hope they go into the votes which are being stored in Fulton County and take a real look at those votes, okay? Because I won it the second time, too. But I know Georgia very well. I love Georgia. Those people are great, and they deserve a good senator, because the man they have now is a weak, ineffective person. Okay.
By the way, you won Georgia 3 times.
Yeah, I agree. Do you agree with me?
I do.
He's the media.
For someone that spends a lot of time in Georgia, I believe you won that. Yeah, okay. I really have a question about.
The word "believe" isn't strong enough, right? Yeah, you know.
There you go.
It's true. I know I won too. We have the great Newt Gingrich. Newt, you agree with us? Good. Otherwise, I'd have him dismissed immediately from the room. You know, his wife, as you know, is becoming an ambassador to a great country, Callista. So congratulations. We're going to take a picture. And the only reason I'm doing it, he speaks so well of me. He said, I'll go down as the greatest president in history. And then he blew it. He said, I'm not sure if I put him above Washington or Lincoln. So I'm not that happy about that, dude.
Question about the weaponization of the DOJ. The media often says your department is weaponizing the DOJ.
Yeah, that's the opposite.
It's the opposite. Todd, you represented President Trump and probably the greatest weaponization of the DOJ by Alvin Bragg. You know firsthand, if you can describe what you saw under the Biden administration and how they weaponized the DOJ.
Well, I mean, I think it's hard to describe what happened in those last 4 years against President Trump. Alvin Bragg, a local prosecutor, his office staffed by somebody from DOJ. Jack Smith, picked as a special counselor, staffs his entire office with DOJ prosecutors. And then there are countless things that happened, all in writing, most of them on the docket, that require no explanation except a complete abomination of the place that the Attorney General and I run now and Director Patel. So when people talk about this department weaponizing, it's embarrassing. Because there's no scenario in which you can look at what we're doing, restoring justice, doing the right thing in every single case, and say that that's weaponization, and yet remain eerily silent about what happened for the past 3 years. I mean, you read these articles and giggle, because it cannot be true that people really think that what they did to him, not once, not twice, I'm still counting 3, 4 times. But we're the ones that are weaponizing. So this man is not weaponizing the Department of Justice. We're not weaponizing the Department of Justice. It's the opposite. I mean, and also, nobody questions what I'm saying because it's true. Because we all lived the past 4 years. So listen.
They never want to bring up the details. But I watched the fake news, and he's weaponized, and he wants to send them to prison. He wants all these. They indicted me like 5 times. I took a mugshot. Who would have thought it turned out to my favor? Because it was a good shot. But I had to take a mugshot. It's right out there on the door. New York Post, front page of every paper in the world. I had a mugshot. They wanted to send me. Nobody says that. They say he's acting very, very tough. He's acting unfair. Let me tell you, if they've been nice to anybody, it's to those criminals, because they are so good having to do with all of the things we're talking about today with violent crime. But if anything, I think this Justice Department has been so respectful of the law, because the other Justice Department with Rita or Lisa and all of that scum, real scum, what they did to the political opponent of a guy that has a seriously low IQ. Now, in his case, it was low based on his career, but it got real low, okay? It was descending rapidly. But what they did to go after his political opponent is legendary, worse than any third world country, banana republic. And what we're doing is nothing. Are you kidding? Nothing. They write stories. Why aren't they doing this? And we'll leave. I don't have to leave it up to them, but I choose to at this moment at least. But there's never been anybody treated in the history of politics. You know, they say the 2 worst treated presidents by the media, etc., was that man right there, the late, great Abraham Lincoln, and this guy right there, Andrew Jackson. They say Andrew Jackson was treated terribly. They give him number 1 and number 2, but that was before I came along, Newt. I say I have number 1 times 10. Nobody's been treated like I've been treated. And I did a great job. You know, we had a great first term. And we had one of the most successful economies in history, et cetera. I rebuilt the military. We did a tremendous amount. The last part, we had a horrible thing called COVID, and we handled that well. We made ventilators for nations all over the world. We did a great job. Probably never get credit for it. Look at the therapeutics, the Regeneron, all the different things, the vaccines, all the things we did. We did a great job, but we had to focus on that. But we had the best economy in the history of our country. We're blowing it away right now. Look at the stock market. It hit another all-time high today. That's 48 days out of the few days that I've served. 48 days have already hit record highs. And we have, maybe most importantly, the number we have now, I was saying 17, it's over $18 trillion is being poured into our country. It's because of the election and because of tariffs. Without the tariffs, you wouldn't have probably 18 cents. It's because of the tariffs, because there are no tariffs if they build in our country. And they understand that. So we have medical companies coming up. We have the AI. We're dominating China in AI. Everybody said that's impossible. We're dominating. I'm letting these massive plants build their own electric generating plants. They're becoming utilities in addition to everything. Maybe they'll make more money with that. Who knows? But they're building their own electric because we have an old grid. You wouldn't be able to do that. And we're dominating China. We're dominating with AI, which seems to be the new big thing. That's the new internet. That's the new whatever. So we're very happy with the job we're doing. I'm very happy with the job they're doing. But when you tell me about attacking a political opponent, there's never been, and I'm a legitimate opponent. I watch my son. He's got the #1 best-selling book now. My son, Eric, he's a wonderful kid. That guy spent so much time with subpoenas. He got more subpoenas than anybody in the history of our country. Think of it. And he's an innocent, good boy. He's a good kid. He's always been a good kid. All of my children are good. They went through hell. My children went through federal grand juries on a hoax. Think of it. You have Adam Schiff and Hillary Clinton and others make up a hoax and then wanting to so they know it's a hoax, and they go before the press, say Donald Trump Jr. will go to jail because of what he's done with Russia. I'll never forget, I get a call from my son, Don, and he said, Dad, I'm being accused of something with Russia. I don't know anything about Russia. He didn't know anything about. Think of it, how bad they are. They say he'll go to prison for the rest of his life. He knew nothing about it. On a hoax, the Russian hoax, Russia hoax, on a story that they made up. And they made it up in order to explain why Hillary Clinton lost an election that she lost by pretty good numbers. The second one, actually the second one was even better, but the third one, this one was too big to rig. It was just too big to rig. They would have rigged. They tried to rig it. But think of it. They want to send my children to jail, but they were after Don in particular. I'll never forget Adam Shifty Schiff, a total crooked guy, lying in Congress, making up a phone conversation that I have with you, totally made up. Then when he heard it was taped, he wanted to disappear. And Nancy Pelosi went crazy because they wanted to impeach me based on the conversation that was made up. When they heard the tape, everybody, I won it unanimously in the Republican Party. I got every single vote, something that never happens, and I beat it. But think of it, they want to put my son in jail for something that they made up. So they know they made it up. And they say he will serve the rest of his life in prison. These are sick, bad people. And don't tell me about us going after them. If anything, we've been very, very soft. I wouldn't be that soft, I'll tell you that. Thank you very much, everybody. Let's stop.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Let's go. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Let's keep going. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Take a look. Location. It's going to be a beautiful trophy.
Thanks, guys. Let's go. Pack up. Let's go. Thanks, guys. Keep going. Keep going.
There's no way to sugarcoat it. Nobody likes Democrats anymore. We have no voters left because of all of our woke trans bullshit. Not even black people want to vote for us anymore. Even Latinos hate us. So we need new voters. And if we give all these illegal aliens free health care, we might be able to get them on our side so they can vote for us. They can't even speak English, so they won't realize we're just a bunch of woke pieces of shit, at least for a while until they learn English and they realize they hate us too.
I'm not even Mexican. I don't know why President Trump keeps saying that shit. He needs to say it to my face, Holmes. And while we're at it, I'm getting really tired of all that dollar store Obama shit. It's getting old, homie. My name is not Dollar Store Obama. Okay, pendejo? ¡Órale! ¡Arriba! ¡Arriba!
Tick, tick, boom. Who bringing the noise? Go, baby, we bringing our toys. Separate men from the boys. Chopper be singing, should be on the voice.
To my amigos Latinos that came into El Americal Elegante, comprende que es time to go back to your casita, por favor. President Trumpo is not bolsito. This is mucho serious. If you don't self-deporto and go back to your casita soon, El ICE is going to breako into your casa and arresto you and all your illegal and alien amigos. So, por favor, listen to President Trumpo and self-deporto. Ahora. If you self-deporto, President Trumpo might give you el chance to come back illegally. Anyway, muchas gracias y adios, amigos.
Okay, esto es mucho simple. El Democrat Party es mucho retardo, okay? Mucho retardo. Especially el Hakimo Jeffries y el Chucko Schumer. They are extra retardo. So El Presidente and I cannot negotiate with these Democrat retardos. It's imposibly, mucho imposibly. Gracias, amigos. Oh, and make sure you El Voto for LJD Vanso in El 2028.
Policy pops up on the tape. Ooh, it's tequila time.
There's no way to sugarcoat it. Nobody likes Democrats anymore. We have no voters left because of all of our woke trans bullshit. Not even black people want to vote for us anymore. Even Latinos hate us. So we need new voters. And if we give all these illegal aliens free health care, we might be able to get them on our side so they can vote for us. They can't even speak English, so they won't realize we're just a bunch of woke pieces of shit, you know, at least for a while until they learn English and they realize they hate us too.
I'm not even Mexican. I don't know why President Trump keeps saying that shit. He needs to say it to my face, Holmes. And while we're at it, I'm getting really tired of all that dollar store Obama shit. It's getting old, homie. My name is not Dollar Store Obama. Okay, pendejo? ¡Órale! ¡Arriba! ¡Arriba!
Tick, tick, boom. Who bringing the noise? Go, baby, we bringing our toys. Separate men from the boys. Chopper be singing, should be on the voice.
To my amigos Latinos that came into El Americal Elegamente, comprende que es time to go back to your casita, por favor. President Trumpo is not bocito. This is mucho serious. If you don't self-deporto and go back to your casita soon, El ICE is going to breako into your casa and arresto you and all your illegal and alien amigos. So, por favor, listen to President Trumpo and self-deporto. Ahora. If you self-deporto, President Trumpo might give you a chance to come back illegally. Anyway, muchas gracias y adios, amigos.
Nothing good, right? Nothing good. Nothing good. So if they're actively having a stroke, then that person becomes potentially paralyzed. And then why don't you start tallying up the healthcare that goes along with that? Yeah. So we see patients in our hospital that everything from stabbing and gunshots to farmers who have their mechanical equipment roll over on them with crush injury.
That's right.
So we see them all. We need to stabilize them, determine whether they're appropriate to stay in our hospital, and if not, lifestar them out.
Yeah.
They get on a helicopter and they go. So what if we close?
That's right.
Then what?
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly it. And so, look, it doesn't have to be this way. It really doesn't have to be this way. And all of the nurses and the doctors and everyone that is speaking out right now, you know, I want voters across this country to think about it. Who do you trust? Do you trust the nurses and the doctors who are showing up for you, who are raising the alarm? Or are you going to trust the people that rolled over for the billionaires so they could have a tax cut while you're getting screwed over? Thank you. I yield back.
Next is Congressman Troy Carter from Louisiana.
Thank you very much to our co-chairs and to Leader Jeffries, and certainly thanks to all of you for having the courage to come and to be with us, to share your knowledge on what this means to so many Americans. Medicaid plays a crucial role in providing care for millions of Louisianians, and ACA tax premium credits help make marketplace coverage more affordable for individuals and families that are ineligible for Medicaid. It's essential that we continue to both strengthen Medicaid and permanently extend the ACA enhanced premium credits. It makes a difference. These programs are lifelines for children, small business owners, veterans, seniors, people with disabilities, and hardworking families. If Republicans let these tax credits expire, 43,000 people in my district alone will see their health coverage costs skyrocket at a time when the cost of rice and bread and rent and mortgage and other payments continue to escalate. This is yet another burden that in America the richest country in the world, we should not have to suffer. Democrats are here to fight for you, in word and in deed. And we thank you for taking time out of your schedules to be with us. There's a million questions I'd like to ask. There's a million statements I'd like to say. I'd like to open my heart and give it to you. We know that time is limited and there are other members to be heard. So I'll be very brief, but I do want to ask Dr. Ellison and Ms. Broth the same question. When a person decides that because of the stress and strain of being able to afford health care, and they elect to not see the doctor because they can't afford to, or they elect to skip a dose of their insulin or their medicine, what does that do, A, to them, and B, to the system that ultimately, when I don't see you in a clinic, when I don't see you on the preventive side of care, I see you in the emergency room and I see you on the curative side of care. Share with us briefly what that means.
Let's take a diabetic, for example, because I feel like this is a tangible, realistic example, right? So if someone who is diabetic does not take their medications, they run a litany of risks, everything from seizures to cardiac events, but also they developed wounds, right? So untreated diabetes can lead to peripheral neuropathy, which is numbness in your extremities, and then you don't have sensation, and the smallest cut or insult to your tissue could cause an open wound that then festers into a sore that then turns into either an amputation or hyperbaric treatment or death from sepsis. So something as simple as making sure that people have access to their medications when they need them in a timely manner, and making sure that they have the education about why they're important and the sequelae that can follow if they don't follow through on a regimen that's recommended.
And so if we can drill into the real issue is, if you can't afford it, you can't take it. If you can't take it, you get sick. If you get sick and it's untreated, you die.
But all of this is preventable.
That's the point. It's preventable, but you have to have access.
Correct.
And we have to convince people that preventive care is a heck of a lot cheaper than curative care.
Oh, yes. Insulin, I can tell you, is definitely cheaper than someone who needs hyperbaric therapy or an amputation or multiple wound debridements.
And for that person who elects to not take their medicine because they can't afford it, then they end up in the emergency room. What does that do to the system?
Well, the emergency rooms in hospitals are already wildly overcrowded, so it just bogs the system down more. And then that person just not having gotten a dose of insulin, right, or multiple doses of insulin over time, let's say, might prevent the next person behind them from getting treated for a cardiac arrest or something else, right? So, and then the next person, and then the next person, and then the next person, and the wait times are longer, and the people aren't getting in fast enough, and then, again, people are going to die in the waiting rooms.
And then quickly, I'll yield. Dr. Ellison, you said earlier that even with the best health insurance, it won't shorten the lines if the system is strained. Even the best insurance. So people were sitting at home thinking, well, it doesn't impact me because I've got the best insurance in the world. It doesn't matter. When the system is strained, it impacts everyone.
Yes, and to follow up on her scenario with diabetes, that person could also have a stroke from not having diabetes. Then the burden on the hospital system, if it's a rural hospital, is more expensive uncompensated care. And so that's going to put a strain on everything. And the person, like she said, may eventually die or be paralyzed or need artificial limbs. So let's give them the insulin. Let's give them the access early so that they won't have to worry about the strokes and all this stuff and the uncompensated care.
Thank you all very much. Madam Chair, I yield.
Next up is Congressman Frank Pallone from New Jersey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I want to ask my question of Ms. Halcomb, because I heard what you said this morning at the press conference. What I want to stress, and my question relates to it, is the fact that people will end up not having insurance. You know, when I talk to my Republican colleagues, they're missing in action, they're not here, they're on vacation, whatever they're doing. But when I talk to them, they don't seem to understand the importance of the Affordable Care Act and the importance of these enhanced premium tax credits, because in their minds, and they say this to me privately, they think there are other options. You know, that somehow people are going to get private insurance, or they're going to get something else, to as an alternative. And I try to explain to them that you may be opposed to the Affordable Care Act, some opposed to it altogether. You may be opposed to help with these subsidies or tax credits, but you have to understand that the reason we did the Affordable Care Act, I was the chairman of the Energy and Commerce Health Subcommittee at the time, and I was one of the drafters, is because we found that there were getting to be more and more Americans every day that could not find health insurance because it was too expensive. They didn't get it on the job, or they got it on the job and they couldn't afford it. They were self-employed. They were a farmer, and that's what this was meant to deal with, this gap, right? And we did the enhanced premium tax credits because we found out that if we didn't provide more help at a little higher income, then there'd be even more people that would go without health insurance. So what I would just like you to answer the question. Explain why we're not talking about higher costs that are going to result necessarily in higher pocket. That's true too, because in New Jersey right now, a 60-year-old couple making about $80,000 a year is going to be forced to pay an extra $15,000 more. So obviously, the cost is going up. But we're talking about people just simply not being able to get health insurance. That, if you understand my question.
I do understand your question, and I think that what it boils down to is, let's just say, for example, a 60-year-old couple. They've worked hard, they've paid their taxes, they've paid in, they've saved money. We have to now dip into life savings that we have saved, we've worked hard for, to pay higher insurance premiums. So, looking back before the Affordable Care Act came, I did my shopping. I did my research. I shopped and I found best package that I could afford. I checked out deductibles. I checked out, prescription coverage. It was a lot of work. And then my premiums kept going up. And I had the discussion with my husband. This is getting out of control. We can't afford this. And at that point, the Affordable Care Act came out. And it was a godsend for us because we were able to qualify based on our income. We're paying taxes and then our net income, versus our gross income. And we were able to finally get something that was affordable. And it was fair. I felt like we were getting very good coverage, not supreme, but decent.
We do a little trolling. It's called we do a little trolling.
But to double or triple being self-employed, we will not be able to afford it. We will dip into our savings, and then that will be drained eventually at some point. Who knows the answer? We don't know because we don't even know what our premiums will be.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Congressman Pallone. Next up, we have Congresswoman Deborah Ross from North Carolina.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is for Ms. Higgins-Freeze. I represent a lot of parents in North Carolina who have children with disabilities, who are on Medicaid. I've visited with many of them. I've been to special places where their kids go to school. I know you talked a little bit about where one of your children goes. And in North Carolina, we want to build a new state-of-the-art children's hospital. But that's now not going to be able to happen if we don't get Medicaid money for that. And what I've experienced with my constituents and the people I visited is that disability doesn't have a political party and it doesn't have an income level. It's just something that families together try to help their kids with, and that Medicaid can really be a lifeline for their family. Could you talk about the financial difficulties that you would have if you didn't have access to Medicaid? And can you talk about what this big, ugly law is going to do to your families? I've heard that families are going to have to get recertified every year for a variety of different things. They're not sure how to do that. Tell us what this means to you and your family.
Medicaid makes our family's life possible. I mentioned this morning that one of my kiddos has been determined that they need 17 to 24 hours of care a day. And we don't know what these cuts mean for Medicaid. Right now, he's living in a group home. Medicaid pays for part of that. Social Security pays for part of that. We could fully fund Social Security if everyone who makes over $400,000 a year paid their fair share. But we've decided not to do that. And so we don't know what that looks like, because the way it works in a group home is that it takes Medicaid, Social Security, and SNAP benefits to make it work for kids to live in and adults to live in a group home. We don't know what that will look like or whether it will be possible for him to continue living in a group home. And if that's no longer possible, that would be extremely, extremely difficult for our family. We were struggling before he moved.
And do you know, are you in conversation with other families that are seeing this the same way, that this law really is going to upend both your child's care, your family's finances, and just your whole family situation?
I think there's two answers to that. Monday night, I had dinner with a group of other moms who have kiddos with disabilities, and the questions that they were asking were, what does this mean? And the answer is, we don't know, but it's not good, right? Longer and longer wait times for care already. As Heather mentioned, it's often 6 to 12 months before you can get into specialty appointments. It's very, very difficult to access care even as it is. But the flip side of it that I think it's very important that you all hear is that, especially in the places that have privatized Medicaid, I would re-emphasize that there are hundreds of thousands of families who don't know they're on Medicaid. And so when the messaging is constantly Medicaid's going away, they're like, that's fine, I'm not on Medicaid, I'm on WellPoint, I'm on Molina, I'm on Iowa Total Care. They don't know that that's Medicaid, or they say, that's okay if Medicaid goes away, my kid's on the waiver. And they don't know that those are Medicaid waivers. And so I think the messaging has to be very crisp and localized to what people understand when you say Medicaid.
Thank you so much, and I yield back.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, I'm an only child, but I'm married into a big family. And when we first were married, my husband was constantly going to this event, to that event, to a christening, a graduation. And I said, you know, we both worked in government, and I said, I can't keep up with this. You know, there's always a place to be. And my husband said to me, you always inconvenience yourself for family. And I just want to thank you for being here today, because
we do a little trolling. It's called We Do a Little Trolling.
You give a damn, not only about your own families, but about your neighbors, about our communities, about our human family. And our destinies truly are tied. So I thank you so much for your expertise, for your candor, and for your vulnerability. My questions have been asked and answered, but I do just want to talk a little bit about the district that I represent, the Massachusetts 7th. This is a vibrant, diverse, dynamic district, deeply unequal. In a 3-mile radius, you might find this hard to believe, from Cambridge to Roxbury, the blackest part of my district, life expectancy drops by 30 years. So we have disparate outcomes across all avenues, but especially when it comes to health. And in fact, my district has already lost 2 hospitals, and Kearney Hospital and St. Elizabeth's, and 1 in 3 of my constituents receive their care from a community health center. which is patient-centered, culturally competent, all of the things. And of course, they're all vulnerable in this moment. I want to share an excerpt from a letter of one of my constituents, Sasha, who lives with type 1 diabetes in Boston. It's the idea of Medicaid being cut or made harder to access terrifies me. I don't know how I would survive. I'm only 18 and I want to live with purpose, help others and give back, but I can't do that if I'm not here. And I can't stay here without the care that keeps me alive. Madam Chair, I ask unanimous consent to enter this letter into the record. Medicaid is a lifeline for Sasha and millions of others throughout the country. It's not a nice to have, it's a must have. And instead of protecting access to care, Republicans have chosen cruelty. They passed the big betrayal bill and created a healthcare crisis that endangers the lives of every person who calls this country home. Donald Trump, RFK Jr., Republicans in Congress are dismantling our healthcare system by firing workers at public health agencies, defunding research for cures, denying women essential reproductive care, and attacking science. And now families are just weeks away from skyrocketing hikes for health insurance. In my district, a family of 4 making $64,000 a year will pay $2,500 more in premiums each year. So for a 60-year-old couple earning $82,000, they'll have to pay an extra $14,000. More than 35,000 of my constituents are at risk of losing their coverage altogether. None of this is acceptable and 100% preventable. Republicans could work with Democrats to lower these costs, but instead, they chose to shut down the government, continue their campaign of wholesale, widespread hurt and harm. I do not know if it's incompetence. I do not know if it is greed. I do not know if it is outright contempt for the American public. But let me be clear. We are fighting for you. To every person fearful of losing life-saving health care, know that we see you and we will not stop fighting for you. Thank you.
Next up is Congresswoman Mary Gay Scanlon of Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for bringing us together. And thank you to our witnesses for sharing your really compelling stories. What has struck me in listening to them is how they reflect the stories that my constituents shared at an event convened by faith leaders in Philadelphia just a couple days ago. We heard from Lori, a small business owner who gets her insurance through Pennsylvania's marketplace. Her adult daughter has a disability and relies upon Medicaid. Lori and her husband are both cancer survivors whose cancers were discovered early because they had health insurance that provided for regular checkups. But in order to stay healthy now, they need to have quarterly follow-ups for the next several years with specialists. If the ACA credits lapse, their premiums are going to skyrocket from $1,000 to almost $2,000 a month, plus a likely extra 80% increase when the 2026 rate hikes kick in just over 2 months. We heard from Andrea, another small business owner who has diabetes. She currently pays $700 a month for coverage, but without the ACA credits, it would be $1,400. She just got her premium notice and expects that her cost next year will be $1,600 a month. If that happens, she's afraid she's going to have to close her business and try to find a job someplace that has a group health plan, a loss of both her dream job and to the community that she serves with her business. We heard from Max, an ER doctor who worked for a frontline hospital, which closed recently. We had 4 hospitals in my district close in the last couple years because of bankruptcy. And due in part to inadequate Medicaid funding. He spoke of the impact on our community when a hospital closes and people can't get emergency care when they need it. He said people have to travel farther for less care, and sometimes they don't even make it. We're already hearing about a rise in births in ambulances because people can't get to a hospital. We heard from Lafayette, a certified peer specialist who helps people in recovery. For more than 2 decades, he was trapped in a cycle of addiction and deteriorating physical and mental health. Like so many others, Medicaid provided the lifeline for him to recover from addiction and lead a productive life in our community. And the headline is that all of these stories, and unfortunately your stories, are not unique. They're happening to people all across America. Americans' healthcare is at risk because of the crisis that Republicans have created here. If Congress doesn't extend the Affordable Care Act's enhanced premium tax credits and allow the big ugly bill's Medicaid cuts to move forward, millions of Americans will lose the health coverage they depend upon. And whether you get your health care through Medicaid or Medicare from the ACA exchange in your state or a private insurer, we will all feel the effects of the Republican policy choices that will close hospitals and health centers and nursing homes. We will all see increasing costs and longer wait times at the ER and when we need to see a doctor or specialist. So this is unacceptable. The impact is going to hit all of us. So I want to thank all of our witnesses here in DC. I want to thank my colleagues for holding this hearing and standing together to demand that House Republicans return to DC and help Democrats make sure that all Americans can get the health care they deserve. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Congresswoman Scanlon. Next up is Congresswoman Betty McCollum from Minnesota.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do want to thank the witnesses today, and I want to thank people from all over this country who are sharing very personal stories of what's happening with their bodies and what's happening with their families' incomes. Thousands of my constituents have reached out to oppose Republicans slashing trillions of dollars from Medicaid. In my district, 19,000 people are expected to lose their Medicaid coverage. Hundreds more have sent me messages concerning the end of the Affordable Care Act credits, like Allison in St. Paul, and I quote from her, "If this credit expires, my effective health care costs would increase substantially, putting an additional strain on my household budget at a time when my family, like many others, are already struggling with costs." I held a roundtable where some small business owners shared their stories about health care coverage for families and their staff. Dan, who's been selling toys in St. Paul for more than 27 years, co-owns Mischief Toys with his wife and daughter. They're already facing tough increased costs due to Trump's tariffs, and now they're staring at a 20% hike in health insurance costs. And yes, I did say 20%. This increase would have been higher had it not been for Governor Walz, the DFL working with Republicans to establish a reinsurance program in Minnesota. Dan and his family are gravely concerned about how their family's business is going to survive and just how they're going to survive with pre-existing conditions. So my question is for Jackie and excuse me for being so informal. You shared so much, Ms. Holcomb and Ms. Frizz, if there's time. How will the cancellation of the ACA credit impact, and you've already kind of said how it'll impact you, but so many of the other people that you've networked with, either you started sharing with families, with children with disabilities, you as a businesswoman, you're going to have to make compromises. So what kind of compromises are you hearing others make in conversations? One compromise I know that my constituents were telling me, if they're lucky, they'll pay more for less coverage, if they're lucky. Would you both just kind of elaborate in a minute a little more?
So I'm back to the drawing board. I have to do my research. And again, I can't plan my budget without knowing what my premium is. Is it doubling? Is it tripling? Is it going from what it is now to, who knows, $3,000? So I'll have to shop around. And, you know, my husband has his own business. I work with him, you know, at almost 60 years old. You know, can I go out and seek employment and get insurance through an employer? Is everybody going to be doing that because they're losing their coverage? I can't plan for my future when I don't have the truth and the facts of what is going to happen. So I'm trying to answer your question. You are. But I can't because I don't know. I think I speak for a lot of people that have a story similar to my family's.
That's right. You don't know.
I have
Can't
no
plan.
idea.
I think that when I think about compromises, and what kinds of things our family and others like us would have to compromise if the cuts to Medicaid aren't rolled back, I think about that the promise that we've always made to our kids since they were born is, we're with you till the end of the line. And when they were little, their doctors made a commitment that they didn't just want them to survive, they wanted them to thrive. And we've always tried to live by that in our family. And so when I think about the Medicaid cuts, for one thing, we've pretty much kind of set aside the notion that we'll ever be able to retire if the Medicaid cuts stand. We just imagine that we'll have to continue working as long as we can in order to pay for as much as we can for especially our kiddo who lives in a group home and has some pretty significant special needs. So that's not, saying, well, we think about not retiring. I mean, that's not like a lot of people that, like Ms. Broth was talking about, where they're not going to get their insulin tomorrow. So I recognize that. But I guess what I would say is, I don't understand why I'm having to make this compromise in order to give money to billionaires. I just don't get it. That really is not why my grandparents served during World War II, was so that we could have government of, by, and for the billionaires, and their grandkids could have their Medicaid taken away.
Thank you. Thank you both. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you so much, Congresswoman McCollum. Next up is Congresswoman Castor from the great state of Florida.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. American families are simply bracing for these astronomical cost increases to their health care. And this comes at the worst time. They're already grappling with higher grocery bills and electricity costs. In Florida, we so rely on the Affordable Care Act. We have over 4.7 million Floridians who go shopping in healthcare.gov, the marketplace, and choose the plan that works best for them. And most of them get a little bit of help through the tax credits. But I want to share the story, one story of a gentleman. I learned all the details this weekend. It's not from my district. He's from a Republican district on the other side of the state in Daytona Beach. He was, his name's David. He's 61. He was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer just a few months ago, and he's started undergoing chemotherapy. A little bit of good news, his cancer markers with the chemotherapy are down, and that's hopeful, especially when you're talking about pancreatic cancer. But he said he has a Florida Blue policy. I'm taking your advice to name what the insurance is of Florida Blue Cross and Blue Shield. And he anticipates that it's going to be cost him 40% more. He's self-employed, doesn't have a high income. But with 40% more, there are going to be people like David who will not be able to continue their treatments. And I wonder, Ms. Broth as a nurse and Dr. Ellison as a doctor, what happens to someone like David? What can people anticipate when the costs go sky high and they have to make really tough decisions?
Well, I mean, in addition to it being harmful to the economy to take money from them and put it towards increased costs of healthcare, they aren't able to contribute to their community in the same way. But also, when someone like that is going to be required to pay that much more for their health insurance, it's going to force them to make very difficult and inappropriate decisions that they should never have to make. Groceries or health insurance, mortgage payment or health insurance, car payment or health insurance. And then when you take away housing, transportation, and all the other amenities that he may require to live and be a viable, productive member of society, you strip him down to nothing. Why is that fair? That's not fair. He deserves better than that. He deserves to be able to afford healthcare and also be able to afford living a comfortable life. That's what the American dream is all about. That's what living in America is supposed to be. Living a comfortable, productive, happy, and healthy life.
And it will depend upon the stressors. People underestimate the health effect of stressors on the individual. There's already enough stressors from the pancreatic cancer. Then he has to worry about his family. Will I sacrifice my health so they can continue? Or like she said, the mortgage. And so there'll be some physicians who will still see him, maybe a community health center that will enroll him for a sliding scale fee, but he won't have the option to get the best treatment. And that's the sad thing. If you can't afford it, they won't give you the best treatment. They will give you options C or D. And so we have to find a way to rectify that so that no matter what your income is or your status, you still get the best care available for you for what particular disorder that you have.
Thank you very much. I yield back.
Thank you, Congresswoman Castor. Next up is Congressman Mark DeSaulnier from California.
This idea that you could pull part of the health system and affect everybody. The CFO of two hospitals that regularly wants the 1% pass through the private. He told me this one is not there. I want to get you to, in our area, we have changed the prevention in primary care. I was in county hospital recently, disproportionate share hospital, awful stories. So we're going from that system that you have been integral to disadvantaged people, to a system that we were working better at preventing higher acuity so people go to the emergency room. With this system, our emergency room doctors we're going back 30 years, and everybody's going to be showing up, everyone, including disadvantaged. So could you respond to that? Just from a purely financial perspective, this is for a party that says they want more efficiency. Could you respond to this?
Unfortunately, some of the hospitals are going to market-based strategy just to survive. And some, especially the private-owned hospitals who have shareholders who are deciding whether or not the people can be seen again given the proper care. And now we have AI saying that this person's worth is not worth the cost of the treatment. So people are doing that. So we got computers now saying, well, they won't live long enough for us to recover the cost of caring for them. So let's not even care for them. And so they will send them somewhere else under the guise of a consultant just so to get the cost and everything off their hospital.
And this is a country that has the highest cost health care system in the world of developed countries with the worst outcomes. So we're going to make it worse and less efficient. Yeah. Thank you.
Congressman DeSaulnier. Next up is Congressman Paul Tonko from New York.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Across the capital region of New York, which I proudly represent, people are receiving notices that their health care premiums are about to significantly increase. Republicans are okay sitting back, doing nothing, and letting these people paying hundreds or even thousands of more for their health insurance. That's simply unacceptable. And how did we get here? As many know, Republicans currently control the presidency, the Senate, and the House. It's their job to keep the government running. They have failed at that job, and now the American people are paying the price. Instead of putting forward a budget that reins in Donald Trump's lawlessness and addresses the health care affordability crisis, Republicans have put forward a dirty partisan spending plan that does nothing to address rising costs for average Americans. If this Republican plan passes, hundreds of thousands of people will lose their health care, and millions more will see their costs skyrocket. Current estimates show Americans would see their out-of-pocket premiums increase by some 114% if Republicans refuse to act. More than 10,000 residents in our own capital region that I represent would see their health care costs go through the roof. A family of four earning $64,000 a year, for example, would see their annual premiums rise by more than $2,500, or a 426% increase. On behalf of my constituents in New York's 20th District, I pledge that I am with you and am here to fight for affordable health care. I've heard from countless constituents who are concerned about their well-being and the health of their loved ones. Suzanne, that I represent from Guilderland, New York, wrote to me and said, and I quote, "Please do not allow healthcare costs to rise. This would be a hardship for my children who are already struggling with high costs. It would also affect my grandchildren and myself." Well, Suzanne, I hear you. And with your family and others like yours in mind, I'm standing strong against these Republican price hikes. I stand strong with our guests like Jonna, Jackie, Heather, and Dr. Tom. During my time in Congress, Republicans have voted over 60 times to repeal Affordable Care Act and try to take away affordable health care from our families and friends. Well, I'll note that in all that time, I haven't heard one mention of about providing for a replacement. Repeal with no replacement. That's cold-hearted. Republicans claim they don't know how we'll afford extending the ACA tax credits, but they had no problem permanently extending tax cuts for the wealthiest individuals, billionaires, and companies. And just today, Secretary Bessent said they found $40 billion for Argentina. That's $40 billion with a B for a political crony. But somehow they can't find any money for health care, a basic right for Americans. Something's wrong with the situation here, and I join you in the fight, and thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you so much, Congressman Tonko. Now I'll turn it over to my co-chair to help close us out with the last few members that have questions. Congresswoman Nanette Barragan.
Thank you. Thank you. Our next member is Congressmember Lucy McBeth.
Thank you so much. I really want to say to all of you that are on the panel today, thank you so very much. Really appreciate you taking the time and effort to be here. And in particular, the three of you that gave such heart-wrenching testimony today in our press conference, cannot thank you enough. I don't really have any questions for you today because each and every one of you have spoken such truth, painful truth to power. And I just can never thank you enough for being the face of what is about to happen here in this country and for just really your honesty and your sincerity. And I just can never say thank you enough. But what I will say is that on November 1st, millions will log onto the ACA marketplace to see their costs for next year completely skyrocket. There will be complete sticker shock for many families already operating on shoestring budgets, as you have already indicated, dealing with stagnant wages, all while the cost of their groceries and their child care continue to rise. And I might add that I represent the state of Georgia, and we have no expansion of Medicaid in the state of Georgia. So for the red states like mine, the devastation will be untold. And while Democrats are here in Washington, my colleagues, we are here in Washington to stand up for those families. Our House Republicans are still on vacation. The livelihoods of the American people are absolutely at stake. I heard from Stacy in my state of Georgia, a constituent who, after being mauled by a dog as a child, she now lives with a chronic pre-existing condition. And I understand pre-existing conditions because I myself am a 2-time breast cancer survivor. Thanks to the ACA credits, she is able to get consistent treatment and keep a steady job for the very first time in her life. She writes, and I quote, "Now my premium will likely go from $600 a month, which is already difficult for me, to over $1,000 a month. And I'm scared I will not be able to afford health care, which will impact my ability to keep my job and provide for my own family." End quote. What's happening here in Washington is personal to my neighbors and my constituents and the families that I represent in Georgia. And it's personal to me. As I stated once before, I am a 2-time breast cancer survivor. So I know what it's like to have a life-changing diagnosis. I know what it's like to be told when you have an illness or a disease that can possibly take your life. I know what that's like trying to figure out, how am I going to pay the bills for my health care? Am I actually going to survive? Am I going to have to rob Peter to pay Paul? And when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, each time I was a single mother. I was very fortunate to have good insurance. And it gave me the peace of mind that I needed. And it allowed me to focus all my strength on getting better, feeling better, and being with my family. But not every person in this country has the ability to be able to do that. I want that same peace of mind for my constituents and for every American who gets sick. That's what they deserve. It is your right. It's not a privilege. It is your right. But if these health care tax credits expire, what happens to Stacy? What happens to all the Stacys across America who have nowhere to turn? What happens if she can't afford the care that she needs? What happens to her family members who rely on her paycheck to keep a roof over their head? Those are questions that our Republican leadership will have to answer, but they're refusing to answer. But we will hold them accountable, as you must as well. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you, Representative Macbeth. I want to thank the witnesses for their willingness to stay. You could see this is a very passionate issue. It's so important. We have 3 members left in the queue for questions, so thank you for your time and your patience in sharing your stories. I will now call on Representative Gabe Ammo.
I'm grateful to be before this distinguished group of witnesses because of the contributions that you've made and continue to make amidst this Republican shutdown. And I want to be very clear to all those tuning in, all those present who are aware of this fact, but we must say again, the Republicans made a choice. They made a very, very clear choice to have a shutdown over addressing the healthcare crisis that they created. So in both circumstances, they created the situation that we're in. And your leadership, your work, your collaboration with the great fighters and champions that I get to work alongside in Congress, the people in our communities who stand up for healthcare, the voices of our constituents that we elevate every single day, that is going to make the difference. That is going to resolve this Republican healthcare crisis, this refusal to extend the ACA tax credits that people across this country, 22 million people across this country depend on, including 40,000 Rhode Islanders. Rhode Islanders who are in a range of life circumstances, from being on health insurance on their own for the first time to small business owners who I got to sit with yesterday in the district who are being forced to make hard choices, many of whom aren't even drawing an income from their businesses, keeping them afloat because they know how much they mean to the community. To those pre-Medicare adults who are just looking to get the care that they deserve, just hoping, crossing their fingers that nothing bad will happen if they can't have essential health insurance. So amidst the shutdown, I wanted to highlight something that is important, has been raised to me by so many individuals, so many groups recently. that seniors and individuals with disabilities who rely on Medicare, especially those without reliable transportation or who can't afford rising gas prices, depend on telehealth and telehealth appointments to get the care that they need to stay healthy. And when Republicans shut down the government, they let these telehealth flexibilities expire, ripping away critical access to care for people in my state of Rhode Island, people across the country who cannot easily make in-person visits. And I've heard from so many of my constituents that they're facing this double whammy of a healthcare crisis and telehealth flexibilities from going away. And so, Heather, I wanted to ask about your perspective in particular. As we are in this Republican shutdown, how are these vital telehealth protections for older Americans and those with disabilities being affected? And certainly as we have these cost increases, as we have the challenges from the big ugly law, give me your perspective on telehealth.
I think 5 years ago, at the start of COVID, nobody really thought like telehealth wasn't a thing. COVID changed the dynamic of the ability to access care from a periphery. So telehealth gave people who maybe hadn't sought care an opportunity to, or maybe were lacking in their ability to continue care to get health care. So when you cut off that, right, you make it difficult for people to get to a hospital to get care. The closest hospital is getting shut down. The telehealth is getting shut down. You're shutting down the suicide hotline. So you've got an added layer of issues of things. It's just stripping people of their ability to be healthy in this country. And that shouldn't be something that people wake up each day and think, am I going to be able to be healthy today? Like, am I allowed to be healthy today? Like, can we just allow people to be healthy?
Thank you.
People want to be healthy. Let them.
Thank you. Thank you. We going to try to keep members to 3 minutes because we have 2 members that showed up right after I made that last statement. I have Representative David Min.
On my mic here. Thank you, Madam Chair, for holding this hearing. I want to thank the witnesses for your very powerful stories, which I think really are emblematic of the stories that people are starting to realize around the country that are going to be their stories. And I'm a freshman. I just got elected last year. This is my first year in Congress, and I've watched over the last 9-10 months as the other side has rammed through extreme legislation, including the misleadingly named One Big Beautiful Bill, which had nearly $1 trillion in cuts to Medicaid. And that is going to happen in 2027. Millions of people will lose their health care because of that. And the rest of us will see much higher premiums. And I think what the Republicans did not realize when they passed that bill is that a lot of those impacts are going to start taking place immediately as insurers, providers, and others start to budget out and think through what this means for them. So, I've heard stories already of pretty massive increases. I think we're expecting something like a 50% increase in our premiums, and we're a pretty healthy family. I have a constituent in my district who's got a lot of chronic illnesses in her family. Their copays have already doubled, and their medications have tripled in cost. And so I guess first just wanted to ask you, Ms. Holcomb and Ms. Freese, the ACA is estimated to increase costs by something like 75% on average. We've heard stories, including from you, about how this might increase much more, 600 to maybe 2,000, 3,000 in some cases. What does that mean in a practical perspective if you or your friends or neighbors or loved ones have to face thousands of dollars in increased premiums each month? For Ms. Freese and Ms. Holcomb. Let's start with you, Ms. Holcomb.
I believe it's not just my family that is in this position. I think it's going to take a wear and tear on the psyche of many families across America. I think that we're already scared and fearful as it is. And with us all experiencing the lack of proper medical care because we can't afford it, I think that will snowball into something that won't be healthy for us.
And there's certainly families not as well positioned as the two of you that might just lose access to care.
Absolutely. And
You know, Ms. Freese?
So your question is around the impact of the Medicaid cuts.
Yeah, having thousands of dollars in increased premiums just on a practical level for your family and others that you know.
So to clarify for me, my family is not on the exchange.
Okay.
So Medicaid is the primary impact to us. And the impact there is around my son's group home, around health insurance premiums, around access to doctors and access to medication. And all of that would be financially devastating. But I think the more important point is that I would urge us to think bigger and more clearly. Medicaid is a Band-Aid on a bad system that has a million different parts where we have to talk about the ACA and Florida Blue Cross and all of these things. And that's the costs of it, and how the little tiny details work aren't the point. Either God sees every sparrow that falls and numbers the hairs on our heads, and that's true for everybody, or it's not. And we've always had one party in this country that thought that some people were better than others. Let's be honest, it used to be the Democrats. Now it's the Republicans, and by their deeds you shall know them. They think that the billionaires deserve to have care, and we don't.
Yeah.
And it's not about figuring out how we're going to fix the ACA or how we're going to fix Medicaid.
Yeah.
If someone wanted to,
Yeah.
you could induct all of us into the military today, give us all honorable discharges tomorrow, and now we're all going to the VA for our care, which is the most efficient and best outcomes in the country.
Something we're working on, yeah. And Ms. Brouth, just one final question for you. On the related question, when you take ACA together with the cuts to Medicaid, if this shutdown continues and the Republicans continue to push through a funding bill that does not address the 15 million Americans that will lose their health care, they let the ACA health credits, tax credits expire. What does that mean as far as the quality of care available to average Americans?
The potential to become non-existent. There would be a lowering of a bar for the level of care that people should be and will be expecting. And unfortunately, that will become the norm and not the exception.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to urge Mike Johnson here, open up Congress. Let us get back to work. Let us fix this, end the shutdown, and not abandon millions more Americans to not being insured. With that, I yield back.
Thank you. I call on Representative Tim Kennedy.
Thank you very much. First, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for being here today and your work on a daily basis and your extraordinary testimony. I want to thank Leader Jeffries and the Democratic Caucus leadership for working with the steering and policy co-chairs Wasserman Schultz, Kelly, and Berrigan for making this hearing possible. As the son of a nurse and the grandson of a nurse and the only occupational therapist in Congress, I've seen firsthand what access to affordable health care means to people's lives. It's the difference between independence and instability, between dignity and devastation. And every day across this country, patients are working hard to recover from illness, injury, or disability. People trying to get back to work, to care for their families, and to live full lives. So when Trump and congressional Republicans gutted health care on the big ugly bill and are now allowing health care tax credits to expire, they're not just cutting dollars, they're cutting lives short. We know this. My district is already feeling the impacts of congressional Republicans' failed policies. Health facilities are closing, costs are increasing, and access to care is dwindling. The stories I've heard from people back in my district make it clear, and the stakes could not be higher. Whether that's Iris, a mom whose family goes to the neighborhood health center in downtown Buffalo and who doesn't know how she's going to continue to make ends meet, or Andy, a long-term care resident at a nursing facility in Western New York who stood with us just last week, who receives the care he needs with the support of Medicaid that's on the chopping block, or Anissa, a patient at the family planning clinic on Main Street in Buffalo who's been going there for years, who trusts the staff, who believes in their care, and now that care is threatened because that facility is slated to close in less than a month because of the Medicaid cuts that happened in the big ugly bill. Their stories, sadly, we know, are just the tip of the iceberg. If congressional Republicans cared as much about healthcare as they did about cutting taxes for their billionaire donors, the federal government would not be shut down right now. Democrats are here. We're in Washington, ready to reopen the government, but we're not going to do so at the expense of Americans' healthcare. Healthcare in the United States, the world's richest nation, should not be a partisan issue. It's a basic human right, one I've dedicated my career to fighting for and providing, and one that right now, Democrats are united to protect for the people of this great nation. It's time for Republicans to do their job, to return to Washington, to cancel the cuts, to make life more affordable for Americans, and to protect health care for the American people. I want to thank all of you again for being here, for your testimony, for your work, and for all that you do in this fight. The stakes, again, couldn't be higher, and your voices are making a real difference. I appreciate your attendance and your participation today.
Thank you. I now turn to Representative Joe Neguse.
Well, good evening. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you to these witnesses. I understand you all have been testifying and listening for going on almost 4 hours now. And I want to tell you how grateful I am, honestly. I know you came from different parts of the country. I represent Colorado in Congress, and some folks from Iowa, from Alabama, and Pennsylvania. I'm just very grateful for your service to our country in a variety of different ways, and for your willingness to be engaged in this fight right now with us here as we try to explain to the American people the stakes. I also want to say a note of gratitude to Chairwoman Barajan, because she has, of course, shown great leadership in terms of leading this steering and policy hearing. And this may be the longest hearing in the history of the Steering and Policy Committee that she's presided over. So we're grateful to her. I have a question for you, Ms. Holcomb, but I want to maybe provide some broader context before I ask you the question. Martin Luther King Jr. once said that of all forms of inequality, injustice in health is the most shocking and immoral. Dr. King's words could not have been more prescient. And it strikes me that he could just as have easily been describing current day America, with a Republican Congress that just a few short months ago passed tax cuts for billionaires, the richest Americans in our country, and are now on week 4 of a paid vacation. Why? Because they refuse to do anything to lower the healthcare costs of the American people and to address this healthcare crisis that they created with their draconian cuts to Medicaid, as was referenced. It's shameful. And I've spent a lot of time in the last couple of weeks, in particular, thinking about the countless Americans who are getting these notices now in the mail regarding their ACA premiums. This month is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, as many of you, I suspect, know. My wife is a survivor of breast cancer. A year and a half ago, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And she is an incredible, courageous woman who battled this terrible disease. We have a 7-year-old daughter, a 2-year-old son. And because of her courage and the health care that we have, she was able to beat that disease. I think about the countless Americans right now, countless Coloradans who are on the exchange and who are about to receive notices. Perhaps they have cancer. Perhaps they have a terrible disease, health challenges that are facing them that they're trying to grapple with, and they learn that their premiums are going to go up by 300%, that they're going to be paying more for health insurance than their mortgage, which they cannot afford. It's immoral. Plain and simple. And I've heard these stories. Just Monday, this week, I was in a restaurant in Gun Barrel, Colorado, wonderful part of my district. Small business owner who introduced herself. Her name is Leslie, and shared her story. She pays $600 and some odd for their health insurance on the exchange, her and her husband. Wonderful small business that they run, a diner. And they got a notice that their insurance is about to go up to $1,900 a month because of this, the tax credits expiring, which Republicans refuse to address. So the question, Ms. Holcomb, is I imagine you hear from a lot of clients, from folks in small businesses and others who are trying to prepare for this impending disaster. What do you say to them? How do you help them understand the consequences of?
Are you referring to? Does your question pertain to our appraisal business?
Yes.
Okay, because my husband is a certified residential appraisal, but this should be interesting. I don't deal directly with the client. My husband does not deal directly with the client. There's a middleman, usually they're called AMCs, but he does visit the homes, whether it's for a refinance or for a purchase. So our whole business is centered around the real estate market, which we're going to see some changes there because you're obviously going to see people desperate to take the equity out of their homes to pay for their health insurance premiums.
Exactly.
It's their biggest asset. So refinancing, cash out, put that money into an account to pay your health insurance premiums. But I think the biggest problem is for everyone, not just my family, for many other families, is it's unknown right now. So yeah, we're getting notices. I'm getting notices, but it's not saying your premium is going to be this. It's saying your premium is going to increase. So we don't know any of the answers, and we should know, especially for the last couple of weeks, the government is shut down. So, and what is plan B? So if there's an increase to our premiums, then what's our other option? But we've been waiting for it, so I guess we'll continue to wait.
So well said. And thank you, as I said, for your testimony.
Thank you.
And I say to all of you, you have far more courage than, unfortunately, our Republican colleagues on the other side of the aisle who refuse to show up here. You all have. We're grateful to you. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sure, thank you. And now we turn to Congressmember Melanie Stansberry.
Right. Good afternoon, everyone. I know it's been a long afternoon for all of you, and I so appreciate you all being here. I was able to hear your testimony at the very beginning, and also for those of you that spoke this morning. So I represent New Mexico's 1st Congressional District, which includes Albuquerque, which is the largest metropolitan area in New Mexico, but by national standards, we're just a 2-cow town, and we've got about 10 rural counties in my district. I'm a native New Mexican. I grew up in a low-income family. I grew up without health insurance. And I think that for a lot of people, probably that our doctor and our nurse serve here, and some of our other representatives here know well that when people do not have health insurance, even when they're on Medicaid or other forms of assistance, they don't get health care. They don't get health care because they're afraid to go to the doctor. They're afraid of encountering bad news. They know that if they go to the emergency room, they're going to be stuck there all day and they might still not have an outcome. And then they're going to get thousands of dollars billed to them. And so I grew up that way. Still to this day, I didn't have health insurance until I was an adult. I still don't like going to the doctor, even when I know what something is wrong, because I was raised in a home where you just didn't do that unless it was an absolute emergency. And that is how people die, because they don't find out that they have preventable diseases. They don't find out that something is going on with them, and they don't get the care that they need. And so, you know, in New Mexico, we already have a healthcare crisis. We are a state that has about 2/3 of our population that's on Medicaid and Medicare. one of the highest rates of uninsured individuals, although we do have expansion and we have incredible leadership in our state who have tried to address the healthcare crisis in the last several years. But we also have a problem with basically the business model of keeping our doctors and nurses in state. And so we have like the twofold problem of people can't access healthcare, and we also don't have practitioners. And, Nurse Broth, I wanted to ask you, our nurses have been through so much the last few years, especially with the pandemic and now facing everything we're facing. And then, Doctor, I want to ask you some questions as well. Tell us about what this current crisis means also for nurses and doctors and healthcare professionals, and how it will impact the people who actually provide healthcare to our communities.
I can honestly say that since COVID, people aren't exactly running to go work in hospitals anymore.
Yeah.
We saw a mass exodus from bedside nursing care, and younger nurses just aren't really interested in going into a hospital and not being able to deliver excellent quality care to their patients. Then they're coming in and they're lasting a year, and then they're moving on to something that still they can use their nursing degree, but doesn't require them to go in and do a half-assed job, when in reality, all they want to do is go in, and you go into nursing, you go into this profession because you want to take care of people and you want to see them get better because of things that you helped them with. You want to see them not come back to the hospital again. You want to see them thrive and you want to see them be healthy. And this is destroying nurses and doctors' ability to do that.
Yeah, and I think this is something that folks really, really need to understand. It doesn't matter if you're on the healthcare exchange. It doesn't matter if you're on Medicaid or Medicare or not. This is an everybody problem. Because when they take $1.5 trillion out of the healthcare system between cuts to Medicaid, cuts to Medicare, and the millions of Americans who are going to lose their health insurance, it will decimate the healthcare system, literally. And it's already a mess because of what we've been through. And Doctor, I heard you talk earlier about your time early in your career, and I heard the great introduction, and I was just in your home city a few months ago for the Civil Rights commemoration in Selma, and I want to close out with that. But, you talked about traveling around to rural Alabama and seeing health disparities and health outcomes. And I wonder, you work in a city, but you have this background working in rural health. How do you see the impacts of these policy decisions impacting the communities that you work with?
Well, Heather began with saying about the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And that truly had a negative effect on a lot of physicians and nurses. But lately, like you just said, it's the policy, it's the disrespect, it's the lack of belief in science and physicians, and rather believe in something you see on TikTok or the internet. And so a lot of younger physicians are saying, why should we go into this if they're not going to believe us or trust us to give them adequate care? So, and we can make more money doing other things besides going into the hospital and seeing patients. So we have to reverse that. The trust has to come back to the person. I had a patient that was telling me he didn't want to do a certain procedure because his brother, who finished maybe the third grade, was advising him against it. And so when we get this type thing based on people, everybody's a physician now. All you got to do is go on the internet and create yourself. And so we have to get back to trusting people, better conversations with our patients. There has to be a mutual respect between the patients and the physicians in the healthcare community. And then we can do that. And hopefully we can get back to we the people so that the politics in healthcare can be removed. I know right now in Alabama, we have gone from 24 navigators to 4. And as I mentioned before, a lot of our people are on dial-up. So they can't go to the exchange online. You have to go and visit them. So if you've gone from 24 to 4 navigators to cover the entire state, the effects are already happening regardless of what happens with the extension of AXP.
Yeah. And I'll just close out quickly, if it's okay, Madam Chair, with just one quick note, if it's okay. I had the opportunity, as I said, to travel to Birmingham, and I heard this story when Representative Sewell introduced you. And I got to meet Miss Ruby Shuttlesworth, who was the daughter of Reverend Shuttlesworth of the Civil Rights Movement,
Yes.
and hear the stories of the kids who were involved in the Children's Crusade in Birmingham. And the thing that I was struck by, and I want to just leave this moment with, is that in 1963, thousands of young children from Birmingham, Alabama, showed up and protested for civil rights. Children as young as 11, 12, 13, they were arrested. They faced violence. They faced dogs. They faced guns. And if those children could be brave enough to stand up to what they knew was going to happen to them to change the course of this country, we can be brave enough to stand up to Donald Trump and these Republicans. And so I say to you, thank you for being on the front line of this fight.
It was one of my most proudest moments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Stansberry. America is facing a healthcare crisis, and it's a crisis that was created by Donald Trump and Mike Johnson. And they've cut Medicaid. They've attacked Medicare. And now they have shut the government down because they would rather see millions of Americans experience massive price increases on their health care. If Republicans refuse to reverse their Medicaid cuts, millions of Americans will lose their health care. We've heard some of that here today. If Republicans don't work with Democrats to extend the ACA tax credits, Americans will have to pay double or triple the current cost for their health care. We know in California just today, they've opened up the system so people can go online to check. American families should not be stuck with the high cost of the Republican failure to act. That's why we are here. Democrats have continued to show up for our constituents and the American people during this Republican shutdown. We call on Mike Johnson to call House Republicans back from their third week of vacation. We want him to work with us to reopen the government and save affordable health care. Unfortunately, 2 weeks ago into this Republican shutdown, and Mike Johnson still has no strategy on how to reopen the government and protect Americans' health care. He said so himself today. Well, Mr. Speaker, Democrats have won for you. It's time for House Republicans to get back to work so we can reopen the government and stop these dangerous price increases on health care. So I want to thank each of you today again for your time, for your stories, for your courage, for being here, for taking the time to be with us, listening, and sharing your story. We are here because of you and the millions of families that you represent. So thank you, thank you. This meeting of the Steering and Policy Committee is hereby adjourned.